the homeowner doesn't get a monthly bill.
No.
Their
They pay
tax
back on-
increase
that
is
way,
like, say if you
okay.
paid $5,000 in
See, all I cared about
taxes.
is whether or not they paid us.
Yeah. Well, I still think that's kind of going to be the individual.
Right. So, you know, we talk about contractual relationships, and our contractual relationship is with the property owner, and their contractual relationship is then with you.
Yeah, so we'll
that's-
standardize our own contracts, I guess, just based on what we learned, but it seems to me that their payment schedule might be a little different than what we ordinarily write into our home improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I
contracts.
think instead of us having COD, we're going to have probably 45 to 60 days.
Exactly what I'm
terms.
thinking too, yeah.
That's probably true.
Depends on the amount of work.
Yeah. The other thing, but what I really meant was, okay, how does it exactly work for them? Because most people pay their taxes
Twice
in
a year.
December or through their mortgage. So what you're going to see is maybe a $20, $30, $100 a month increase in your mortgage payment or your tax.
It's a property tax assessment twice a year. So the same time that you pay your property taxes,
Okay.
you'll see this itemized on your bill.
Gotcha.
As a separate assessment that you voluntarily opted into.
Okay.
So twice a year, I think our website calculates on a monthly basis to try to show, you know, the cost benefit of how much you're paying on a monthly basis technically to be part of this program versus what you're saving on your utility bills.
And since these are older homes and owner occupied, you kind of can maybe assume that they probably don't have high tax rates. So this won't be
Right.
quite the hit it would be on someone that has a newer home.
That's right.
At what point in that application, I never saw anything talk about the contractor's pricing. All I saw were estimate pricing. So as the applicant's going through this process, he's giving a estimated number where in actuality, maybe it's $10,000 higher than what he's giving on these numbers up here. Where does that fall to play, or how does he recoup that kind of fund?
Well, like Jeff said, these are estimates to help them try to come up with, you know, some sort of an idea of where they're going. But before they actually hit submit on an application, they should have a bid in hand. So they should have already been working with.
So are they
you.
inputting that final number?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And will we be able to, well, let's just interactively do my part. Will we be able to make suggestions to you about where we might find the values askew? Because one size doesn't always fit all in this county, you know, as far as the value of a particular trades performance.
You know, Jeff's got sort of a logarithm that they've been able to use in various places relating to project costs, general estimates, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how those estimates come.
Yeah, there's two sources really. One is the most sophisticated analytics that are out there today are with Home Energy Saver, which is a Berkeley application. Berkeley Lab application sponsored by the DOE. And the other is local professionals in the Bay Area. That's where we started from.
So would you want us, if we could, feeding you some of that
Absolutely, and that's part of what I mentioned. I said it kind of quickly is we can figure that however you'd like.
Okay.
You know, we're not set on those numbers in any different area, but we're also, as time goes on, the more people use the system, then we'll start to record that too, and we can start taking the average rates for different size systems, et cetera, for different projects.
So if we could encourage our members to go online with the site now and maybe take a look, see, and just see if they feel like the numbers are comfortable for, and I know there's a difference in value in Santa Barbara and in Santa Maria, for instance.
Right.
That's probably, and I don't know how that's going to be reflected.
I just leave San Francisco numbers in, probably.
Yeah.
But the Santa Barbara numbers, yeah, probably.
Now, another big question I had was, when you go online and you read about these programs, they're ARA funded. So
I'll talk
that
about
says it requires prevailing wage or Davis-Bacon.
Do you want me to talk about that? Let me talk about that a little bit. Actually, yes, you're right. You and I have had this conversation, so we know that attachment 12 on the Municipal Financing District ARA funding document does say that it's actually unfortunate because there's an awful lot of ARA funding that's not the case, and this one, considering it's being paid back, it seems especially inappropriate. But you've got, what, $4.2 million that we can get of QECB's bonds, which does trigger prevailing wage. with certified payroll, and I'm not sure who would be looking at that certified payroll. Do you know, Angie?
In terms of monitoring. that
Yes,
it's done.
yes.
We talked about that a little bit this past week, and it wouldn't be the onus of the county necessarily to monitor that, right, David?
That's true.
Who are we reporting it to?
We would probably get a disclaimer showing that you have
From the
agreed to
state.
do prevailing wage, and that's our system.
But the customer isn't, I mean, customers aren't savvy to what
And
prevailing
this
wage
is not all the
is.
funding either, Fran. This is just part of it.
Okay.
We've got the other the $40 million will not have prevailing wage attached to it. This is just one special funding piece that may work for some of our commercial property. Thank God.
And what we're
Not
intending
all
to
of
do
it
with
is
it.
Not
prevailing
even,
wage.
very little of it will be, unless you're doing probably big commercial property where it's deemed appropriate.
What
or
we're
it's a
intending to
good
do is
tool.
set aside that funding for commercial property
Right.
in particular, to minimize the impact of having to explain this environment to a residential customer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly.
ultimately, this does represent a pot of money that we feel is important to the program's stability, and it is a pot of money that in particular can help fund large commercial projects.
So the 4 million that you're talking about starting out with is private?
No. Well, we have access to that, am I correct? But the $5 million that'll be invested from the general fund to establish the salable bonds and the revolving fund loan won't have prevailing wage attached to it. And that's what most of us would be using most of the time, unless you find a big commercial project where prevailing wage would be not a problem. And in that case, it's a good funding tool. Is it not as low interest rates?
Right,
Or
right.
Yeah.
So the qualified energy conservation bonds do come out of ARA, and they do present a pretty good financing tool for us, a low cost, sort of very convenient, and the timing is actually pretty good as well. So we do want to take advantage of that opportunity. It's sort of a unique opportunity to get our program started, but it's the mindset of the program that we're not necessarily interested in prevailing wage from a program point of view.
Nobody
Where we
is.
have to, to access certain types of financing, we will.
That's fine, and actually the issue of certification is going to be a problem for you when you turn around and do your reporting on how the bonds are spent. So I don't know how, it's going to have to be collected in some form, whether or not it's monitored or not.
Right.
So we'll keep talking about that, but I'm relieved. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
What's going to be our trigger?
Oh,
To get
you'll know via the client and the application process. Most of the time it won't be. That's a good question as well. So it may be that with on the contracts the customers are using that they have to, it's their responsibility to make their contractor aware.
Right.
But you're doing the application after you already have your bid. I mean, they're saying you should do your application
true,
after
too.
you already have your bid. Well, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that totally changes
Ouch.
everything by a tremendous amount. That's true. Right.
Yeah, we might have to say, this is your non-prevailing wage bid, and we're going to know if we're on a big commercial or a little
Yeah.
house, probably.
So I think this is one of those areas that we need to know up front what to tell our customers in terms of information. If they're trying to access a certain financing source and they need to use something that triggers prevailing wage, then they should know that up front.
This has been the most amazing part of this program, and I know I sound like I'm too effusive about it, but that's because they've been extraordinarily responsive to every question that we've asked, and the program's evolving. It's not engraved in stone. That's what's so lovely about the whole private-public partnership. We've been talking about it really being a true hybrid because they are responsive to what we say, and as it evolves, they want this to work. And whatever we have to do to make it work for us and for the county is what we're doing. And that's the really good news on this program. I can't even emphasize that enough. In lieu of any questions, can I just kind of bring up a few quick things? One of the reasons that we're going to want to be supportive of this is that without this funding tool, the counties around us, SLO County and Ventura, are using a program called CalFirst. And that is just, it's in its infancy. It's very fuzzy. We don't know what it's really happening with it. But it will allow very little local control on the face of it, if you think about it. This is so, for lack of a better word, progressive in that we are right ahead of it and able to make it our own. and kind of guarantee local hire that way. And I'm really